In the spirit of respect, reciprocity, and truth, we honor and acknowledge that together we live, work, and play on this land of the people of traditional Treaty 7 territory. The Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika Kanai Pikani. The Tsuut'ina Nations, Iarhe Nakoda, and Region 3 Métis Nation of Alberta. Hello everyone, this is the Astrological Lunar Magick Series brought to you by imagination at imaginationwitch.com. So what are we doing here today? Well, we're going to be, with this series, looking at the moon cycles so that we can do our moon magic. And we're going to be looking at the previous moon cycle, the quarterly check-in, and the upcoming moon cycle. This will happen twice a month on every quarter moon. But first, let me get myself ready. To have our conversation. I just like to have a little ambiance for myself. All right. So first, let's talk about the previous moon cycle. What was it? Well, it was December 29th, 2020 in full moon Cancer. So let's have a look at the wheel. Now I want everyone to know that when you're looking at this wheel, you can't consider the placements of these planets in the houses as if you would normally read it from east to west. And basically, the house systems as well as the ascendant and midheaven are calculated more precisely based on location as well as time. And since this is a general moon phase for everyone and we're looking at just the transits, we are going to ignore the house placements and only look at the aspects. So first, let's look at the aspects from the moon. The moon itself, I have put up the aspects from the moon going to all the other planets that it touches. And there's a lot going on. When a moon is in full, it will always be opposite to its sun. And that is how we get a full moon. So you can see the moon opposite to the sun. I've created this chart to have the moon and sun exact in opposition by 8 degrees and 53 minutes. What is also next to the sun conjunct is Mercury in Capricorn. So basically the moon is touching both the sun and Mercury in opposition. So what does that mean? Let's have a look here at our glyphs. So opposition is basically having one perspective and an opposite perspective that are trying to do the same thing but are looking at it from two different ways. And it's about trying to reconcile differences to be able to come to a mutual goal. So with a transiting moon in Cancer opposite transiting Mercury and Sun in Capricorn, we basically have a moon that's in its dignity, where it really wants to feel. It really wants to make itself happy, emotionally fulfilled, doing whatever it desires. And sometimes that can be a good thing. Sometimes that can be us indulging in some unhealthy behaviors to make ourselves happy. When we look at the Sun and Mercury in Capricorn, Capricorn is very much about rules and structures, regulations, And the sun is how we express into the world, how things shine and radiate, conscious expression, as well as Mercury being intellect, knowledge, data, information, and communication. The moon is subconscious, our inner desires, things that may come up without our knowledge, like why are we craving something? As the sun, being conscious, is going, well, I know, because of the Capricorn, what I should be doing, what it is that is the most responsible thing for me to be doing during this time frame, but it does not align with what I want to be doing that makes me happy. The other thing is that we have been talking and hearing from everyone with that Mercury on what is the more responsible things to be doing during this time. So as much as there is stuff that we would like to be fulfilled, particularly during this time, it was the holiday seasons for a lot of people. Maybe they felt emotionally upset because they could not be with family, or there any restrictions that were happening during that year, etc. And a lot of people may have been thinking, I'll just do it anyway. This is just one example, though. And then there's all that communication of, well, it may not be exactly the right or the wisest or the smartest thing to do. That's been in conversation over and over again with the Capricorns. So it's about having to mitigate those two opposing views, being able to find ways to bring harmony to your emotional self. One way that I would suggest is to consider perhaps finding new ways of making new traditions based on this one unique time period. Being able to see this as an interesting one-off so that you can work within the boundaries of Capricorn, the responsibilities, but also feel happy and fulfilled. So it's about compromise. Let's look back at the chart, and we're going to look now from the moon to Neptune. And you can see Neptune is in Pisces. Pisces is the modern rulership of Neptune, and the traditional ruler is Jupiter, which is in Aquarius. So we basically have a trine, which is beneficial energy happening between the moon and Pisces. That means energy is flowing easily between the two. These are both watery elements as well. So they are elementally the same. They probably feel, think, communicate, etc. the same because they are of like element. So if we look at our glyphs here, we could say that both the moon on this side and Pisces are trying to work together to be imaginative, to be creative and inspirational. This is really coming from Neptune. Neptune can dream big dreams, can think of fantastical scenarios, can be into fantasy and illusion. But that's not always a bad thing. It can be about bringing up new dreams and aspirations that will emotionally fulfill us. So it can be our inspiration right now, since it's working with that moon. The only other thing that I would say as something to be aware of both this moon and Neptune, is that because the moon is sensitive and emotional and in its power, it can be more moody. And Neptune in Pisces is also in its power, which means it could go to perhaps addictive behaviors or comforting unhealthy behaviors to deal with that moodiness. So that's just something that we needed to be aware of, because it's very easy to flow into that, considering that this is a trine energy. Let's go back and look at the chart again. What do we have next? We have the moon square Chiron in Aries. Now, Chiron has been in Aries for a long time. It presents a lot of challenges. Chiron is the wounded healer, so it comes with a certain amount of previous pain. For me, when Chiron is in Aries, I interpret that as issues with integrating anger problems that have come from past hurts. So with the moon and its sensitivities right now, let's bring up our glyphs. I would be asking, what is it that I feel really makes me angry? What is it that grinds my gears? Whether it's what's been happening this year on a global level or on a personal level. It's basically stuff that's been happening in the past that will be coming up emotionally to really bring up a sense of rage, anger, upsettedness. This is important because squares, people sometimes are afraid of squares, are meant to be like our training facility, like our gym. It's tension so that we can grow. The same theory as with muscle building, right? You have to apply stress to the muscles so that they can get bigger, be stronger. So our moon is really needing to dive into its anger issues to be able to find healing of those anger issues, because just indulging in the anger is not helping transmute or work through that anger. So the anger that comes up during this time is meant to help give you some insight and illumination into stuff that we can be working on with that full moon, things that we can be releasing so that it can be transmuted into different energy. Now let's go back again to our chart, and we have a sextile of the moon to Uranus in Taurus. Now, Uranus in Taurus is not in its most favorable position, so it tends to be less inspired than it normally is. Uranus can be very individualistic, futuristic, innovative, but Taurus is very heavy, elemental, and slow energy, so it could be more of a slog to be as innovative, or creativity may not flow as fast and easily. But let's bring up our glyphs. Have a little Vanna White moment. Ooh. Our moon is really having the opportunity to utilize this slower time with, the Uranus and Taurus to, again, work on that creative innovation. It may not be like instantaneous, but it is part of the harmonious energy as well as that trine to Neptune. So it may not be wholly inspiration right away and totally able to do it, but it's about slowly working on that process to bring that vision that comes through Neptune to fruition. So it's an opportunity. It's not guaranteed. We have to recognize it and work with it. So that is basically what happened during our full moon. Welcome everyone to the current moon phase, which is the last quarter moon heading to the new moon, January 6th, 2021. Basically, I like to do these sessions on quarter moons because I consider them check-in points. We can review what happened with the previous energy, which we just did, then look at a reflection of what we need to be thinking about now, and then prepare ourselves for the upcoming moon. And this becomes part of our regular process of working with moon magic. So let's begin. Let's look at the chart for today. As mentioned, we have to ignore ascendant, midheaven, and any house placements because this is general for everyone. And I have just the moon aspects out to things in the chart that it will be connecting to. So when a moon is a quarter, it means it's square to the sun. So let's start looking there. Let's look at the moon square to the sun. Now there is a lot happening here. There is a square happening between the sun, Pluto, and possibly Mercury. It's listed here. It would be kind of a wide orb as 10 degrees, but because it is being touched as well by the Pluto in a 2-degree orb, let's just include it for the sake of having this kind of stellium grouping. We can see a square brings tension, brings that opportunity for us to go to the gym and train, right? Let's bring up our glyphs. And we have the moon over here in Libra. And Libra is very much about trying to balance things, trying to still be your unique emotional self while honoring and respecting other people's uniqueness. And then we have over here the grouping with the sun in Capricorn. So last moon there was very opposite viewpoints between Capricorn and the moon, the Capricorn sun and the moon. Now the moon is getting closer to possibly seeing things from the sun's perspective. But it still has to process its own unique standpoint, beliefs, emotions, needs, patterns, habits, etc., and balance the Capricorn perspective. And that's really great, this Libra energy, because it's not about having to sacrifice yourself and give up and just having to accept and adopt the other perspective. It's about finding the way to grow between both perspectives. And that's pretty much the most healthiest way to have interrelation. The Sun, Pluto, and Mercury in Capricorn continues to talk about how we need to be responsible in this world, what we need to do to be structured and organized and put effort in. But the incorporation of Pluto now brings an element of death and rebirth. So part of this communication with the moon, we can say that we are in the process of analyzing what are the rules and responsibilities that need to be done, having the time to transform the current existing structures, right? Pluto gives us the ability to deconstruct what already exists as an institution or a structure or the rules that are already set in place and create something entirely new. Basically an upgrade, an improvement. And this improvement is gonna have to be informed by honoring both emotional perspectives and having open communication with that Mercury in a open dialogue, not a screaming dialogue. This isn't like an aggressive Mars, in a go around the circle and share your feelings kind of way, in a organized way for people to clearly be able to express themselves. So that is the energy of what we need to be reflecting on during this last quarter moon. Let's go back to our chart now and look at the moon with the north node, which is a lunar mathematical point, not an actual physical body in the world or in the celestial sphere. The north node is in Gemini. Now, the north node is considered an area of growth, an area outside of our comfort zones. And it's interesting that it sits in Gemini because the ruler of Gemini is Mercury. So we basically see here that the moon is trine the north node in Gemini. And what is that telling us? Again, trines are easy flowing energy. So it's more fluid right now for us to hold emotional perspectives, for us to hold our own emotional seat and acknowledge and respect that other people will have different ones, and to be able to make space to be uncomfortable with having dialogue with people of opposing views. So let's go back to our glyphs. This basically is showing finding ways to not be a battlefield in our communication with opposing sides. This may or may not be what we are seeing in the world. Who knows how it's happening in your household? But the idea here that energetically we all should be reflecting on is that two different perspectives are now having the opportunity and the blessing of ease of energy to really create new space to have, let's just call it, civil public discourse. That could be on a more social level. It could also be within your home, within your social networks, etc. It's about being able to have difficult conversations without screaming at each other. It's about being able to make space for someone to say what they are thinking, acknowledge that to their minds they may be having some form of a point or perspective that makes sense to them, and just having discussion around it without being aggressive or attacking them. Let's go back to our chart and see one more thing now, in opposition to Chiron and Aries. So we can see that, as we talked about last time, we're looking at woundings over anger issues, and the moon is very, very in opposition right now to that Chiron, which is saying as much as there is ease of flow to be able to bring up these spaces to have difficult conversations, know that there is a lot of deep wounding under people right now that will have them be defensive and aggressive. This could make for more screaming in each other's faces kind of behavior. So be aware of that. The point is to, in the previous moon, have taken some time to be able to work with the salve and the healing of Chiron, understand where your anger is coming from so that you can practice expressing it without being triggered by it, right? That is the healing power of Chiron. Back to the glyphs. These are going to be some intense times, and what I encourage everyone to reflect during this time is to continue to do the work of Chiron and to really try and figure out, why am I angry? Why does this bother me? What is triggering me about it? And that may be a lot of things right now. But by being able to have that conversation with yourself, by being able to hold awareness around it, you can then be able to talk about it without being triggered by it. And that is the biggest thing that we're trying to work on here, is to be able to harness that trine energy about being able to have conversations, difficult ones, without feeling like we're going to war or that we're in something that brings up a lot of trauma response. So that is our last quarter moon energy. If you want, you can work with these energies in a ritual or a journal or a meditative practice, whatever you like to do. And let's get ready to look towards our upcoming new moon. New moon in Capricorn. So let's look at our chart to start off. We can see that the moon has now joined the sun, which is how our new moons actually happen. Again, I have made this chart to be the exact moment of the new moon so that we can see the energies coming from there. The moon is with the sun and Pluto in Capricorn. So let's just talk about that. A little recap from our check-in. There is a lot of possibility for us to reflect on the social structures, the governance, the institutions, both in our personal lives and the larger societal systems. See what is working and what needs profound change. Now that we've gone through this cycle, we're ready to now take our emotions and align to reflecting that change ourselves. So this is very much about our emotions aligning with what we believe we now need to put the work into to continue to build, shift, and change for the betterment of ourselves and for all. So let's look now. The moon first is in a sextile to Neptune in Pisces. Bringing up the glyphs. As we know, our sextiles are opportunities for harnessing some positive energy. It gives us the possibility and hope, basically, to be motivated to put in the work to head towards our dreams. Very particular language here. It's not a guarantee that the dreams happen. It's not like, yes, immediately I get success from this. It is very much hope for the possibility of having to work. That Capricorn cluster. Put in the emotional work. Put in the work externally of yourself, meaning live the way you want to see the world to be. Walk your talk. And back to our chart. Now, the moon likes the sign of Taurus. It's normally exalted in that space, being stable, nurturing, understanding, empathetic, and having lots of intuition. But the moon is very opposite of a Mars energy. Mars can be initiative, aggressive, outspoken, energetic, and the moon can be rather internal landscapes. So Mars, let's go to our glyphs. Mars over here Mars very much is trying to find a way to be methodical in that Taurus energy, trying to look at its ambitious drives and put things in step by step. And yet there is tension between the drive and the slowness of Taurus. Boom, I did this in an hour and it's done, which is more of the Mars energy. The Mars energy is like, I want to get this done in an afternoon and instantly be rewarded. And Mars and Taurus might be like, okay, maybe I can put a week's worth of work into it. But really what that cluster with the moon is asking is, can you commit the energy to put something in for the long haul, which doesn't exactly have a suggestion of how long that's going to be. So it's about having to be mindful both of self-care, to be able to allow yourself to work for the long haul, to be able to give yourself breaks, to be able to rejuvenate yourself, because you can't just go, 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 go like Mars wants to, or else you'll burn yourself out. Mars, in that go and Taurus energy, is very much kind of like a creative splurge, a very intensive rush of energy that finishes in a sense of completion. And you need to think about how you can use that over a long period of time, and how can you replenish yourself between those episodes. The new moon is very much about planting seeds of intention. So for myself, I'll be working here at my altar, putting down some intentions. I like to look at how the transiting moon energies are affecting other transiting planets, but also looking at how it affects my natal planets, both where I was born and where I'm currently living, because relocated energies express differently as well. And that helps me get something very specific for doing my energetic work. But if that's not something that you are interested in doing for yourself, you can just work with the energies that we've talked about. Again, whether it's journaling, whether it's meditation, whether it's actually doing witchcraft or any other spiritual religious practice, from an astrological standpoint, this is the energy that we need to be aware of during the new moon so that we can set new intentions. So I'll do a little recap here for you. We need to make space to be prepared to work for the long haul, to be able to make transformative change in our larger systems, both personally and societally, globally. So thank you everyone for joining iMagiNation's Astrological Lunar Magick Series, Episode 1. So I hope this gives you a lot of reflection. I hope it allows you space to prepare for the upcoming new moon. In the next episode, when we go to the first quarter check-in, we'll review that new moon energy. We'll check in with what we should be looking at in that moment and preparing for the next moon phase. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you end up finding intentions that you want to share. Let me know if you are practicing moon magic and in what ways you're doing so. I would love to hear all of these things. Thank you so much for checking in, and I hope to share this with you soon.